My cat. Alrighty, guys. Let's get into this video. As you see by the title, we're going to be talking about my complete anxiety disorder journey. This is probably going to be a long video. So if you're at work, you got time to listen to it while you're working, go ahead. If you want to actually watch it while you're home, whatever. I'm just saying this is going to be almost more like some sort of podcast-ish, not format, but length. It is going to be, it's probably going to be a very long video, like 40 minutes to an hour, I assume. So get some coffee, relax, do what you got to do, because it's going to be a while. So a lot of the anxiety videos that I see on YouTube and media, they're cut up, right? And there's a lot of editing. There's a lot of step 1 to cure an anxiety disorder. So I want to give you my full anxiety disorder journey from February 8th, 2021 to today, December, what is it, 7th, 8th? 8th? It's December 2025. So almost 5 years of my anxiety disorder journey. This is going to be unedited or very minimally edited, just cutting the beginning to end where I turn the camera off and that's it. No music, no bullshit. I'm going to speak how I speak. There might be curse words to emphasize. This is going to be a raw video. I'm not going to leave any details out or sugarcoat. It seemed my last video that I made almost 5 years ago with my anxiety disorder where I talked for 30 minutes. Did well, helped a lot of people. So I wanted to do it again. I want to help you guys out. I'm going to talk as much as I can about my anxiety disorder, from the symptoms, how long, intensity, my diagnosis, or diagnoses. Is that the plural? My diagnosis. Anyway, it's all uncut. So listen to this while you're at work. It's a long format video. Anyway, here we go. So you are not alone in your anxiety disorder journey, but I feel like that just kind of doesn't fall on deaf ears, but it's just said so much that it does not have any effect. Hearing you're not alone does not help. So I'm going to break down everything. I'm going to tell you what worked for me. I'm going to tell you all the crazy symptoms with an anxiety disorder. I'm going to tell you about how that led to OCD and all these things. So my anxiety disorder started February 8th of 2021. Technically February 9th because it happened at midnight the next day. I got off work. At the time, the girl I was seeing worked at a school right across the street from me. Literally across the street. The head custodian, my boss at the time, he supervised both the buildings. So I took my 1-minute drive right across the street to pick her up. I would pick my ex-girlfriend up from work. And she had her key stuck in one of the locks at work. And I was sitting in the car waiting. It was like, we got off work at midnight. So at 11:55, I'm sitting outside. It's pitch black. Orange light above me, like an orange street light. I'm waiting outside of the school to pick her up. She texts me she's having trouble getting her key out of a lock. And all of a sudden, a sensation I have never felt in my life, as I described in my past video, a funnel feeling of intense adrenaline. It literally felt funnel shaped, like triangular, like it started here, it came to a point in my stomach, the physical sensation, boom. And I remember going, what the hell? I remember there was a almost automatic inhale reflex that I did from all the adrenaline. Immediately, I started to feel horrifically uncomfortable in a way that I have never felt before, and I didn't know at the time how to describe it. And I remember stepping out of the car. Later I will talk about how, with my anxiety disorder, if I have panic attacks, I want to stand up and move around. Some people want to get under a blanket, some people want to sit in a corner, some people want to run, everyone's different. I remember getting out of the car, not knowing what this symptom was, this sensation, and I started to pace back and forth. To this day, that's still sort of my automatic reflex. I still kind of, when I feel a panic attack coming on, I stand up or I get out of bed. I cannot sit still during a panic attack. So I'm starting to pace around and a symptom impending doom starts to hit me. And my girlfriend comes out of the school, finally got her key unstuck. And I tell her exactly like this, babe, I don't feel good. Now that feeling that I was feeling was impending doom. That was my first set of symptoms. If you don't know what impending doom is, it is this crushing, well, we'll get into that a bit later. We'll continue the story. So I feel the impending doom. It feels like I'm starting to have a hard time speaking. So I eventually asked my girlfriend to call 911, as anyone would that's having their first ever panic attack. And that's what I wanted to mention. This was my first ever panic attack. Never had one before. So she calls 911. She tells them what's going on. And she's kind of nervous laughing. Not in a nasty, horrible way. That's what she does in tense situations or in scary situations. Some people nervous laugh, even though they don't think it's funny. That's just what she was doing. So ambulance comes, fire truck comes, they step out. The guy's putting his gloves on. And at this point, before they came, like a few minutes before, I was sitting. I eventually got back into my car, sat down like this, was hyperventilating, started to get a little lightheaded. And I remember during the phone call when she called 911, halfway through it, I was like, hey, I think it's going away. Because I did actually start to feel it go away. Then it just 10 seconds later started to come right back up. So I sat in my car, hyperventilating a little bit. I thought I was dying, as anyone that has their first ever panic attack usually thinks. Ambulance gets there, EMS. I think he's putting on his gloves or something. He's like, hey, bud, what's going on tonight? And I remember I was standing in front of him by my car, and I'm going, I'm having a hard time, I feel like I can't speak, like my heart's racing, I'm really afraid I'm gonna die, and so they took me into the ambulance. And I wanted to mention before that too, when I stood out of the car, when I felt that funnel of adrenaline, the world started to feel fake, which is DPDR, or derealization, depersonalization. It's when the world, either you, depersonalization, personal, you don't feel real, you feel detached from your body, it's very scary. Or derealization, it's where the world feels fake, equally scary. I remember looking around and I started to think, just intrusive thoughts, am I the last person on Earth? It's 12 at night, there's no cars driving around, so this intrusive thought pops up, amplifies the adrenaline, the panic attack. And that was another symptom I dealt with. So now, this is when the panic attack peaks, when I'm in the ambulance. My throat got horrifically dry from the hyperventilating, and my mouth, and I was telling them, can I please have a drink? Can I please have a drink? And they're like, no, you can't have one. And in my brain, I kind of knew that that's protocol in case you're having a real medical emergency. You can't eat or drink anything, or they don't want you to. So that made the fear worse. Sorry, neighbors are kind of going crazy. And then the panic attack hit its peak inside the ambulance. I was laying down on the stretcher, I believe you call it, and I was hyperventilating. I had all the symptoms by now. All of them, all that you can name. I remember the paramedics, they hooked me up to the EKG to make sure I'm not having a heart attack. That's kind of what I was thinking, that or stroke. And, they weren't really doing anything because there was nothing to do. It was just a panic attack. But in my world, in my brain, my body, the world was on fire. The world was ending. I was ending. I was dying is what I thought. So as a way to I was too afraid to say, hey, can you help me? Because I think I'm dying. My way of doing that was kind of I was laying there so out of it. I'm like, I really appreciate everything you guys do. I was trying to beckon them, please help me. But I was too scared to be scared or show it outwards, I guess, which is funny. Not funny, it sucked. It sucked ass. I remember I did at one point in the beginning when I got in, I asked if they thought I was dying, and they both went, no, we don't think you're dying. And I think kind of what stretched out my anxiety disorder, the length of it, is the fact that no one really told me it was a panic attack, which I'll get into. So I'm having all the symptoms. I am having my throat is killing me, my airways, from being so dry from hyperventilating. Like, it was actually really painful. That's another way you can kind of get chest pain with a panic attack. I was hyperventilating. I felt lightheaded. Now, I want you to know, during a panic attack, when people say lightheaded, you might think that means dizzy, like world spinning, which you can have, but when you are lightheaded from hyperventilating, it feels like you are about to pass out. And that is one of the most terrifying sensations. You can have that symptom if you go from laying down to standing up really quick and you're like, whoa, you know, your vision gets fuzzy, you almost fainted. Now imagine that feeling, but it doesn't go away. It's lasting 15, 20 minutes. So you feel like you are on the edge of death. The paramedics feel fake. My body feels fake. Now, some people in these anxiety disorder videos, they don't emphasize or really tell you what these symptoms feel like. They just mention them. Derealization. I want you to know that I literally thought the world, or not thought, it looked like the world was fake. I felt like everything was fake. I don't know how to describe it. You got to experience it yourself. But it's almost like suddenly everything in the world is a movie set. Like your brain kind of tells you like, oh, this feels fake. This feels weird. This doesn't, it's a very unnerving feeling that you can't describe. But yes, I literally felt lightheaded for 15, 20 minutes. I literally thought I was dying. Again, I want to emphasize so you understand. I remember like looking at my body and my hands they felt distant and not like mine. It's so terrifying. I remember my legs felt like they had 20-pound cinder blocks attached to them. I remember my skin felt hot and numb. So when I was touching my legs, which I still have this today, it's not a medical issue. It's just like some parts of the skin near my ankle and stuff aren't super sensitive. But my anxiety brain was saying, oh my God, my legs are numb. And when you do hyperventilate and you're having a panic attack, your body sends all the blood, not all, a lot of the blood to your internal organs. It's just a flight or fight survival mechanism. So your legs and arms can actually feel numb. So combine that with like maybe my ankle skin has always been a little, there's just parts of your body that your skin isn't as sensitive, like your elbow. It's like more rough. So you touch it, you don't really, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh my God, my legs thought I was dying, as everyone that has a panic attack does or believes. And yeah, all the symptoms, full-blown symptoms. I remember texting my girlfriend my ex-girlfriend. I said, I don't know what's going on, but everything will be okay. I started to think about my family and whatnot. And when you hear people say that they believe they were dying, again, I want you to know, I literally thought this was it. I thought I was dying. So it's not like your body kind of thinks you're dying and like maybe you're worried you're dying. No, people that have panic attacks generally think they are actually literally about to die. It is so scary. So a long story short, I get to the hospital and nobody's telling me it's a panic attack or anything. They wheel me into like the cardiac unit. And I remember asking the lady, do you think this is like heart, or do you think this is like stroke or something? And she goes, no, this is heart related. Didn't tell me it was a panic attack. EKG, I think in the ambulance was fine. Ambulance, I think I said ambulance. And I remember there was like 4 or 5 other people in there that probably had actual heart issues. So you can imagine, I feel like I'm dying. And my whole world really just, whew. I thought it was the end, or I thought I was going to be wheeled into surgery. An assistant or someone that I actually went to high school with, he worked at the hospital, comes around. He's like, hey, I think I know you from high school. And he asks, like, who are your emergency contacts? I'm still laying on the stretcher on the bed. I am exhausted. The panic attack has basically gone away, but I'm having the after effects. He goes, who's your emergency contacts you want to put in? And I go, what? Can you say that again? He had to say it like 2 or 3 times because I was just so out of it. Again, these aren't life-threatening symptoms or anything that's actually damaged within your body. It's just you had a panic attack. Your body is exhausted, and So they do all the tests. Everything is fine. My magnesium was a little low, but everything was fine. And I think I'm in there for like 2.5 hours. It was just a lot of laying around. I remember I was like trying to fall asleep at one point. I was so tired. I let them know, hey, I got to use the bathroom. I remember they gave you like this little jar plastic cup thing. It's shaped really weirdly. It's curved. I don't know why that matters, but I remember also trying to pee in that, and I peed on the floor for some reason. Panic attacks do strange, like I just missed it first, and I peed like, yeah, on the floor for like a good second before I realized. So you can imagine that, this is, sorry, TMI. You can imagine that panic attacks, they just completely just, the after effects of a panic attack are insane. You know, the after effects that I felt, I was extremely tired. It was hard. I had to have people repeat stuff. I was a little derealized. Everything felt, I remember my hearing was just, it felt like everything was a little distant. Again, these symptoms, these are literal. I'm not being figurative or exaggerating. Long story short, I'm discharged after like 2.5, 3 hours. Oh yeah, and by the way, this is great, talking about an anxiety disorder, and I have an energy drink. Good promotion. If you have a really bad anxiety disorder, don't drink caffeine. Anyway, my sister comes and picks me up. It's like 4 in the morning. Like 3, maybe like, I think it's like 3 in the morning at this point, or 3:30. She drives me home, and that night I just couldn't sleep. I tried to sleep, but I basically laid in bed for like 5, 6, 7 hours. And I would like go in and out of sleep, but I was so frightened, didn't know what this was, and so scared that my mind was on it the entire time. I felt like my world had flipped upside down because, you know, I was thinking there must be an illness that these doctors are missing. They must have missed that stroke or that heart attack that I had. And at the time, this made completely rational sense to me. You couldn't convince me that I didn't have a heart attack. I was like, no, they must have missed it. The machine must, like, it must have happened. So I remember getting up. I remember at like 8 or 9 that morning, I got on my phone and I called that hospital that I went to, and I was like, hey, I think you must be mistaken. I think you might have missed something. Can we please do retests? And they're like, no, we can only do tests if your doctor orders tests. So I'm like, well, this sucks. I need to find a way to get these tests redone. Another symptom I was having that morning shortly before I called, was every time I try to sleep, that funnel feeling would hit me again, of that adrenaline, and then it would just go away. No full-blown panic attack. So I never felt that before. Must be a stroke, must be a heart attack. So I call I called the staff up at that hospital. I'm like, we need retesting. They wouldn't do it. So I went back to the hospital. Here's the start of the anxiety disorder. The checking, the needless checking, negatively reinforcing the anxiety disorder and feeding it. So I went back to that hospital and I told them, hey, I think, I really feel like I had a heart attack or a stroke. I don't feel well. And the after effects, I almost felt ill. My throat was still just a little sore. My airways from the hyperventilating, just barely. The world felt fake, slightly fake, not fully fake like you're dreaming, but it felt slightly fake. And all these symptoms I've never heard of or educated myself on. So I'm like, hey, we need to do retests. Please, let's do something. Like, I don't feel well. So they did an EKG. That was fine. And then I believe I don't remember if it was that visit, but there was a visit at a hospital where they like swabbed me for like a virus or something. It might have been that visit, but I remember, going back, I think it was that visit. They took me back to this little waiting area. I sat on like another stretcher. Wasn't having a panic attack. They're like, the doctor will be with you shortly. And I sat there for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I felt so physically sick. Not like I just felt awful physically. The sore airways, the exhaustion, the I almost felt like my vision was a little more grainy, or I was just focusing on my vision, which reinforced that. And God, I thought it was the end. I thought I was dying. They do more tests. Everything's fine. I get discharged again. And this is kind of where, this isn't where the story ends, but that's like, I really remember those details. And then from there on, this is February of 2021 to June of that year, 2021. Every time I would have a panic attack, I would go to the hospital, which in an anxiety disorder sense isn't good, but for someone experiencing a panic attack, it does make total sense. Again, you really feel like you are dying. You 100% believe you're dying. Getting instantly lightheaded, feeling like the world's fake. Who wouldn't go to the hospital? So, man, for those months, I think I went maybe 7-8 times to the hospital, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it gets expensive. And that's not even including all the messages I was sending to my doctor. I think within the first month, I think I must have sent 50 or 60 messages over the MyChart app to my doctor saying, I'm having this symptom today. What is it? I'm having this symptom today. What is it? I'm having this and this. Eventually it got to the point where she told me, Job, I am no longer accepting any messages you send because I'm no longer accepting any messages I will not respond on here. You either need to make an appointment or go to the hospital, which she had every right to do because I'm sending the same things over and over, worried about it, and she's told me she's not worried about it, this and this. And for those months, it was arguably, not arguably, those were the worst months of my life. The physical symptoms, feeling like I had some sort of illness or disease. And it all started just from nothing to, I must be dying, I must have an illness. You know, hindsight, I can see, like, there was nothing wrong, but when you're in it, and you physically don't feel well, of course you're going to do all these things. I remember there was it was like May or something, a few months after my panic attack, or a couple months. Maybe it was from February to June is when I kept going to the hospital for panic attacks. And every time it was the same. I don't feel well, I'm dying. They would bring me back, take my blood pressure, do all sorts of things. I remember like my second or third visit to the Danville hospital. They were like, hey, Job, what's going on? Or, hey, and I'm like, hey, I'm back again. I remember one nurse was like, aw, when I said I was having a panic attack, like she felt really bad. I was like, yep, I feel my panic attack coming back, like I feel it. And she went, oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was fucking horrible. I remember one of those trips to the hospital, I swore up and down it was something brain related, that I had a tumor or something. And the doctor came in and I'm like, we need to do testing. Will you please do a CT or an MRI to rule out a brain tumor and this? And he's like, Job, I am 98% positive we won't find anything, but to alleviate your mind, we can do one. And they found nothing. They found nothing. I remember they were giving me all these different types of anxiety medications, but I was impatient and all the symptoms were just crazy. And, you know, I'd take them for a little while and they'd make me dizzy and I would get off, and it was trying a bunch of medications. Like citalopram was my first one, and I was dizzy on it all the time. Was it exasperated by my anxiety disorder? Probably. But I remember one time taking the medication. I was just so dizzy. It's funny. Hindsight, it's funny. I was on my hands and knees, and I had my head on the carpet, and I was going, oh, I'm just so dizzy. It's a funny visual. But yeah, from February to June, it was fucking hell. It was so torturous mentally. There was one point I believed I had ALS, which was a really scary stint because for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, my my neck muscles just felt so weak. And you can imagine being tense all the time, having all these panic. I think I had like a panic attack every maybe week and a half. Some I could stop. Others, like I said, led me to the hospital. But I believed I had ALS at one point. Lou Gehrig's disease, I think it's called. Lou Gehrig's, is that how you say it? Lou Gehrig's disease? ALS, which is basically a disease that destroys your nerves. I think it's your nerves. And you become paralyzed. Stephen Hawking's had it. So I believed I had ALS. From all the panic attacks and the high tension all the time, my neck started to feel weak. Of course I could hold my head up, but my brain, you couldn't tell me that. You couldn't make me be reasonable. I thought my neck was getting weaker and weaker over time. And I was reading on like ALS forums, and I was imagining myself in a wheelchair. And having my family like sorrowfully like tend to me in my wheel. It was fucking horrible. Is what it was. So when people say anxiety disorders are just butterflies in your stomach or nervousness or a panic attack that they really don't know what it is, that is absolutely not at all. That is the tip of the that's not even the tip of the iceberg. That is like you zoom in on the tip of the iceberg 1,000 times. And then the rest of the anxiety disorder, you zoom out and here's the entire, there's so much more to it. My cat is snoozing away. Oh my God, the baby. I love her. Sorry. But yeah, that went on for a long time. And I remember one of the worst stints in the beginning of my anxiety disorder was I was so tied up in, do I have cancer? Do I have a brain tumor? Do I have this and that? I was watching a YouTuber named Pee Wee Toms, I think is what his channel name is. And he's a YouTuber that documented himself going through a very aggressive, rare form of cancer. He ended up dying. And I remember watching his last video he filmed while he was alive. And he was skin and bones in the hospital, face looking like a skeleton with skin over it. And he cracked a joke in the hospital bed. And he says weakly through his voice, he goes, "That looks like my nipple, but it's not." And he laughs a little bit and he goes, "It's actually cancer." And I remember hearing that. I was watching it kind of leaning on the edge of my couch. Just neck deep in my anxiety disorder at the time. This was 2021. I think it was like March or something. March or April, I think. I think it was March. Anyway, I hear that and it just triggers something in me. And I start crying because, again, I imagine myself in a wheelchair. I imagine myself dying of cancer. I imagine all these horrible things. And the phrase, you run to your parents when you're upset. That's not a phrase, but everyone says you want like a soldier in battle. I want my mom or I want my dad. That's real. Because I thought that was going to be me, destined to be him, dying of cancer or whatever illness. And so I text my dad. I'm like, "Hey, I'm not feeling too well. Do you mind if I come over?" Of course, my loving dad being that when I say something serious over text, he calls, right? He doesn't want to text over it. He's like, "Hey, buddy, what's wrong? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I really just don't feel well today. Like, can you come get me? Or I can drive over there." And then I think that's what I said. I said, "Hey, can you I'll just drive over there. Can I spend the night?" And I was living at an apartment with my ex-girlfriend at the time. "Hi, kitty, my baby." And then we hang up and I'm about to leave and he texts me, "You just want me to come get you?" I say, "Sure." So we go to Walmart before we go to his house and I'm walking around with him. And I had another weird anxiety symptom. When I am really bad off in my anxiety, I'm so tense from my muscles and stuff, just flexing all the time, that my head does little shakes. And I don't think people can see them, but to me, I can like feel my head once every like 2 minutes. I'll feel like my head do a little shake. It's just my muscles in my neck and stuff are shot from all the anxiety, and stuff. So we're walking around Walmart and I'm just so tense and it's awful. We go over to his house and he's like, "You want me to cook something for you, buddy?" So he like heats up like these frozen chicken tenders and fries. He's like, "Sorry, I don't have anything green on the plate, but I know you probably want to eat something. You're probably hungry." So he made something quick, and I took like 3 bites, and I just had absolutely no appetite, thinking about the guy with cancer and thinking about my anxiety disorder. So yeah, I took like 3 bites. I wasn't full. I just had no appetite. Went to the couch. This is where I used to live, my dad's old place, which was like a 8-minute drive from the apartment complex I lived at. And I remember there was Iron Man 2 playing on the TV, and I laid on the couch with a blanket wrapped around me, just like shivering in anxiety. Not because I was cold, but because I was so fucking mentally tortured 24/7. I was just kind of shivering every once in a while. He didn't really notice that though, and we were about to go to bed, and I was going to sleep on the couch, and my dad always has slept on the floor. That's just what he does. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but that's for another video if I ever describe that. For protecting his house is why he started doing that. But I was like, I'm just going to go to bed. There was a middle room in that house with a bed. I went in there about to sleep, and like a kid wanting their dad, I said, can you sleep in there with me tonight? Can you like lay on the floor? That's how bad it was. That's how fucking horrible my anxiety disorder was at the time. I felt like I was going to die soon all the time. I felt like my world was ending. I felt like some disease was killing me. And I remember laying in the bed shaking for like maybe 30, 45 minutes. And with anxiety disorders, these weird symptoms happened. We're going to go into the symptoms now. That's kind of my story. Had a horrible time there. My dad was loving and caring for I stayed like 2 nights there, but I just had so many symptoms going on. Now let's segue from that story into the symptoms of my anxiety disorder. And I'm going to name every symptom I can possibly think of that I've ever had with my anxiety disorder from 2021 to 2025. So get ready. So obviously with a panic attack, heart palpitations, you can feel your heart pounding in your chest. These are acute symptoms. So what I mean by that are symptoms that happen during a panic attack. Derealization, depersonalization, brain fog, having a hard time thinking or speaking is what it feels like. It feels like there's a block in your, like a mental block. Like you can think the words, but it's really hard to speak. That's another time I went to the hospital, was for those symptoms. I went because I felt like I couldn't talk, even though I was speaking. Numb arms, numb legs, feeling like I couldn't speak, racing heart, lightheaded, impending doom, which I said I would talk about. That's a built-in survival, flight or fight, part of the flight or fight. Part of flight or fight is impending doom. It's your body telling you, you need to get away from this situation, you are going to die, or this thing is going to kill you. The problem is there's generally, with everyone that has a panic attack, there's generally no threat in front of you. Impending doom, to me, feels like I'm going to die, I need to get to a hospital. That's always how it's manifested. I am going to die, I need to get to the fucking hospital right now. I'm dying, my heart is failing, this and that. So for me, impending doom is this feeling that something so horrible is going to happen, whether you die or the world's going to end. It literally feels like the world is ending. It is so terrifying. It's a complete shift in your mental state. It is so it feels like you're dying, is how mine is manifested. Yeah, so feeling like I can't talk, feeling like, feeling lightheaded, feeling faint. And those are really it for the acute symptoms that I would experience: the hyperventilating, the sore throat, the sore airways. And now let's get into the symptoms of just all the symptoms I can name on a day-to-day basis. And anxiety disorder does not mean that you only feel symptoms during a panic attack. You can feel symptoms 24/7. Now, can you feel lightheaded, like you're actually going to pass out literally 24/7? I think you could maybe manifest that mentally, but not like medically to where there is something wrong. I don't think if you feel literally lightheaded, like you're going to faint 24/7, that's probably, that's not right. But let's talk about all my symptoms. I'm just going to rapid fire them. These are day-to-day 24/7 symptoms that sometimes I would feel or magnify because of my anxiety disorder. Again, all these have been cleared. I went to the hospitals. I was cleared medically so many times. Everyone says, all the doctors would say, hey, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. So let's go through them. 24/7 symptoms. Feeling like my eyes would lag behind my vision. I don't know how to really describe that, just that sometimes when I would look around, I feel like my brain wouldn't catch up to what I was looking at first. It was very weird, very disorienting. Worrying about fainting 24/7, so feeling like this slight sensation on the back of my head. And I'm feeling that right now because I have an anxiety disorder. It's just like this, I'm aware of my eyes and the possibility that one day I could pass out, so it makes a weird symptom, very strange. At first, I had this tight rubber band sensation around my head because of muscle tension. These can be caused by, not just pure manifestation. Physical things you do during your anxiety journey or disorder long-term can make weird symptoms. I had sore muscles, sore neck. There have been times I was washing my hands and I felt like suddenly my hands were heavy. And I worried so much, like, oh God, I'm having a stroke. I can't lift up my arms, which was a big thing I did during my anxiety disorder journey, is I would do this. When I was about to have a panic attack or I felt like I was dying, I would put my arms out. Or I would immediately start walking in a straight line, because that's something doctors will do if they suspect maybe you've had a stroke. So I would walk in a straight line. Okay, I'm not having a stroke. Hold my arms out. Oh God, my left arm feels like it's falling. I must be having a stroke. You can see how this disorder is just utter hell. I have a blood pressure cuff, which I would check my blood pressure with, which I think I might have actually thrown away. Do I have that anymore? Oh, I don't know. Maybe for another video. But my dad gave me this blood pressure cuff, which actually reinforced the anxiety, made it worse. But I would get temporary relief. I would check my blood pressure. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Wait, totally fine. Or it would be elevated because of the anxiety, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm hypertension, I'm having a heart attack. What other symptoms? I had this, I still have this. I stand up and I get a little bit of head pressure, just barely noticeable. A big one for me that I've always focused on in these 5 years is this unsteady feeling in my feet, or walking around. I kind of sometimes feel like I'm on a boat, or that I worry I might fall over. So suddenly I feel like I can't stand. I feel like I can't. Sometimes I feel like walking is a little weird or robotic. It gives me a lot of anxiety sometimes. Muscle tremors, that's huge. Just tremors all throughout your body. Tremors in your arms, your legs, your chest, your head. Laying down at night, I remember when I would finally be done for the day and my anxiety would settle down. One of the subtle side effects from that muscle tension all day were tremors all throughout my muscles. Basically felt like little butterflies everywhere. But I would get on Dr. Google. Butterfly feeling in the chest. Oh, could be an arrhythmia. Oh my God, I have a heart arrhythmia. I go get a Holter monitor, which is, they glue a little monitor onto your chest for like a week, and they watch mine was 48 hours, I think, or I think it was 72, 3 days. They watch your heart activity. Basically like it's a really long EKG. But I had a Holter monitor, and, back on the symptoms, sometimes I would just scan my body. I would just check, do my arms look, do they, is blood flowing in my arms? Am I pale? Are my fingers purple? A big thing I would do to check for a stroke is stick out my tongue in the mirror. Okay, my tongue is straight. That's good. It must mean I'm not having a stroke right now. Again, derealization, depersonalization, I think for like the first month or two was at its strongest. I really had a lot of derealization. Not a whole lot of depersonalization. I had a lot of derealization where the world felt foggy. And when I say that, imagine like, how do I describe the feeling of fogginess? It's just like your thoughts overall are just muddled a little bit more. It's a little harder to think, it feels a little harder to speak. Of course you can do all these things, but that's just what it feels like. I describe derealization as imagine the world is foggy and distant and maybe like a movie set, which a lot of people say that have had this too, that it kind of feels like everything's a movie set, like familiar but fake, I guess is a good way to put it, for me at least. I have so many symptoms, absolutely so many symptoms. Feeling like I couldn't feel things well enough with my fingers or my toes. I think like a month ago I woke up and my feet, for some reason, I think they were cold, they felt a little numb, but then your brain starts amplifying that. Oh my God, my feet are numb. A month ago I literally stood up and checked, like, am I good? Can I walk? Now this was not as near as severe of symptom checking as it was 5 years ago, but I still was doing it. Yeah, feeling like my skin's slightly numb. I would check my skin. Am I having a stroke? Do I have a blood clot somewhere? Does my skin, my arm feels a little, I can't feel as well as I did yesterday. So I would think, I must be dying. God, this video is actually really long. So I think we're gonna split this up into two parts. I think I'm gonna resume the next video with more symptoms, but man, really diving into this is just barely the surface. We still need to talk about when I developed OCD, when I developed an existential fear of the universe and stuff. So much stuff from an anxiety disorder. But I hope you guys like part 1 of my anxiety disorder journey. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you right back here on part 2.